Hello, everybody, and welcome to the American Black Wednesday Thanksgiving, November 21st edition of the Go With The Flow NHL podcast. Nick Phillips, joined by my line mate, as always, Kevin Bartman. And Kevin, just right off the hop here, around Thanksgiving time, I guess we got some more NHL coaches getting carved up, eh?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Yeah. Speaking of doing good, how about some guys who are not doing good? You got Todd McClellan kicked off to the curb, as well as Mike Yeo.
Yeah. Yeah, Tom McCollum is more like his replacement is now, we can call him Ken Hitchcock.
Oh, what a weird hire. Like to bring in a guy 20 games into the year, you'd think it'd just be like an assistant or just like, I don't even know, like the AHL coach or something. But Ken Hitchcock was probably like sitting on his couch, like playing Donkey Kong or some stupid shit. And then he got a call from Chiro. He's like, hey, you want to coach the Oilers? He's like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll be right there.
Probably in that voice, too.
He's wiping like Doritos off of his neck.
I was about to say, man, he was probably 3/4 of a bag, hand all the way down at the bottom of a nacho cheese Dorito bag, like just watching guys a third his weight buzz around the ice, and just gets this call on his beeper, and he's back. I mean, people forget he coached the Stars. I think people honestly might forget that because
I think he might forget that. That was just like
it
happened. Same thing last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, the Stars bringing Hitchcock. Oh, okay. Like, that's the only reaction. It's like, okay.
Yeah, because I thought there were like indications, right, that Hitchcock, when the Blues tenure was done, that might be it for him. I don't know if he ever like said he was retired, but it didn't seem like he really was going to have another coaching job. Not that he's not qualified to do it anymore or anything, but for some reason, I think there was some talk that he might not coach again. And then he goes to Dallas, and then it's just 1 year, and then you bring Jim Montgomery over from Denver, and it's like, okay. And I think a lot of people probably said, well, that's it for Ken Hitchcock, right? But he's like a 17-year cicada or whatever. Like, he's back, man. Like, welcome back, Ken Hitchcock, to the coaching ranks. Grandpa Ken, as I like to call him. But, man.
And not even a good situation to come into.
Oh, fuck.
Like, I mean, he gets to coach Connor McDavid, but, like, that's pretty much it.
First of all, you have to go to Edmonton right before winter starts. Yuck. No offense to the fine folks up there, but it's not, I wonder what the wife thinks of that one. You know what I mean? After, a stop in Dallas and Texas, and now it's, hey, honey, I don't know where they reside in the off season and all that stuff anyway, but yeah, Edmonton can be a tough sell, I feel like, on the family. But he's going there. And I mean, we've talked about the Oilers a bit on this podcast, this year, and it's pretty much a one-man team right now. It's kind of McDavid, just buzzing around the ice and making plays and, carrying the scoring. And I think, what was that point streak we talked about a few episodes ago where he had like points on the first 9 goals of the year or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Exactly what it was.
I guess it was more than a few episodes ago, but thinking back to it being literally like the beginning of the year. This just screams Chiarelli also, I think, trying to just save his job, like one last-ditch effort, to make it seem like, the roster he assembled is a playoff contender, and that, they need a new voice behind the bench and in the locker room and all that good stuff. So I think this is a desperate move by a GM who's kind of playing his last card. Like, this is kind of the last stunt he can pull as GM,
No, not so fast.
No?
Let's also remember he just traded Ryan Strome for Ryan Spooner.
Oh. Yeah, Jordan Eberle trade looks great there.
So, yes, I was going to say he essentially flipped Jordan Eberle for Ryan Spooner. So, stay hot, Chiarelli.
My goodness. Yeah, that's it's a tough scene. I mean, it's a tough scene for Edmonton right now. But, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like it's just weird. Like I never thought Ken Hitchcock would be coaching Connor McDavid, but here we are. Like it's just a lot of random shit had to align for this to happen. I don't think any of us would have expected this 2 years ago.
I mean, I thought that Tom McClellan was going to stick around a lot longer because that playoff year. Or shit, wait, was he after?
What's that?
He was the head coach when they
Yes, he
got
was.
to the. Okay, yeah, I was just making sure. Yeah, so like after that year, I'm sure. I mean, we're not alone in thinking that like people thought they're going to be really good, and then it's just sort of been a slow demise ever since.
I mean, he had obviously the Sharks. They've never won. The whole thing, and they got to the Cup after he left, and DeBoer replaced them. But I wouldn't say his tenure in San Jose was a disaster or anything like that. I mean, the guy was a long respected assistant head coach with Babcock in Detroit. Gets the San Jose promotion. After he leaves Babcock's side. And he coaches there, does okay, goes to Edmonton. He was the team North America under 23 World Cup head coach. So the guy's very well respected. This was his fourth year with the team. His first year was McDavid's rookie year, right, where McDavid broke his collarbone. So, but the one year that he had a healthy McDavid and a lot more talent on the roster that, she really didn't quite get to trade all of it away yet. I mean, he traded some of it with Taylor Hall, but he didn't get his hands on everyone yet at that point. He kind of took them to the playoffs. So, I don't think he's all that old either. Like, I wouldn't be – how old do you think Tom McClellan is? I mean, I don't think he's that old. So, I think he's going to get another shot somewhere. I just feel like he's pretty respected across the league. I would say he's right around 50, maybe a year or two older. But, guy like Hitchcock and Quenneville, those guys are like, in their 60s and stuff, and apparently people still want them. So I think there's a solid chance that McClellan's going to land on his feet somewhere. Maybe not mid-season, but he'll be a candidate somewhere.
Tom McClellan, by the way, is exactly 51 years old. So good job by you.
Wow. That's, blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while.
And yeah, especially considering like I feel like there's a lot of coaching changes that can come. I don't know about in the near future because, I find it hard to believe that like close to double digit of coaches are going to get fired in such a small period of time. But like, there's a lot of teams that are not even close to meeting expectations right now. It's still early, but like
that would be a great segue. We have another coaching change to talk about, but I think that's a great segue where, everyone's talking about, Joel Quenneville. Well, right. Well, we could maybe talk about that too, but there's a lot of teams where I think there's a lot of season left to be played, even though it's November and you probably want to be in the playoff hunt, right? No later than by Christmas time. But there's a lot of teams that are falling below expectations, as you said, and barring a turnaround, there's going to actually be some very talented rosters with potential midseason coaching vacancies, or if they continue to falter and kind of back into the playoffs or slightly miss, there's going to be quite a few teams that might be in the market for a head coach, and there's going to be some really well-respected head coaches that includes Q that are going to have their pick of the litter and can use these teams to leverage against each other in negotiations and stuff. But like I said, there was one more coaching hire. So our rival, St. Louis Blues, obviously Kevin and I are Hawks fans. We always have to briefly mention it for any first-time listeners, and sorry for the long-time listeners to have repeat it every time, but kind of gives a little bit of a background as to any jokes we make about St. Louis and stuff. But Mike Yeo, 2 nights ago, this will be dropping on Black Wednesday. Mike Yeo was fired. St. Louis is last in the Central. They made Craig Berube. I'm having a total brain fart here, but former Flyers coach. I know that for a fact. He's got promoted from assistant to interim head coach, but Yo was let go, folks. That was a good one. And any thoughts there, Kevin?
Well, for me personally, I was on record on this very podcast before the season even started. I thought that the Blues were going to be very good. and they are not very good. It's just pretty much that simple. Like Mike Yo isn't. I feel like he's not the ideal coach for this group of like, it's a deep forward group, a lot of talent, and I feel like that doesn't really mesh well with how Mike Yo coaches. So, I mean, he seems like another one of those guys where he could probably just fall backwards on another job sooner rather than later. But it was clearly just like a terrible fit for Yo.
Yeah, I think the major factor here is the offensive output this year has not been anywhere near what it should be, given the talent that they have in their forward group. They've put up 56 goals in their first 19 games. So, I mean, 19 is kind of like the low end mark as far as games played this year. Every team's pretty much played somewhere between 19 and 22 games. But just looking at it in a vacuum, they've got the sixth lowest scoring output this year, like sixth lowest in goals forward this year. So the last game he coached, they lost to the futile and banged up and old, slow LA Kings 2-0 on home ice. So I think that was obviously the nail in the coffin. But man, at what point does like Doug Armstrong get a little shit for the Blues constantly underachieving and then for missing the playoffs last year and their slow start this year? I mean, obviously he went out and he made the Braden Shen trade last year, which definitely I think is a win of a trade. I mean, they give up Yori Laterra, who's an absolute shit stain. But
didn't he go to the KHL or?
He did go to the Flyers. He might be in the KHL now. So I mean, yeah, that's a big. But and then you make the Ryan O'Reilly trade, which was another deal to try to rejuvenate those forwards. And seems like he's trying to add to that forward nucleus and shake it up a little bit. Yo is the scapegoat, I guess. But I think it's fair to say that maybe another coach could get more out of that forward group. But at the same time, I think the GM needs to own a little responsibility because he's been there a very, very long time. And I think they've only gotten to the conference finals once, which was the one year where San Jose kind of waltzed all over them with 2016 when they went to the Cup and eventually lost to Pittsburgh. So, I mean, obviously, I understand why there's frustration in St. Louis, but it's kind of eerily similar to the Blackhawks situation in the sense where maybe you're not firing a legend, but it's like, hey, maybe the GM needs a little more attention here for what's going on.
Yeah, the Blues, like for as long as I can remember, they've never had a complete team that could make like a deep run. Mm-hmm. I guess despite the conference finals run you just mentioned, they've never been a team that you can like expect to make a deep run because
they've tried everything too. I mean, they've tried everything from making blockbuster trades at forward to getting Ryan Miller at the deadline the one year, and the Hawks still beat them. I mean, they've tried everything and just come up short.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't really know what else to say beyond that. It's almost like a no-brainer that you have to put most of the blame on Armstrong, but for whatever reason, it's just a revolving door of head coaches, and they just have yet to figure it out.
Yeah. But yeah, as we talk about, the Blues are one of honestly several NHL teams that are not performing anywhere near expectations. I don't think anyone really expected the Kings to be this bad, even though, that was a playoff team last year, but maybe no one expected them to be a real cup contender. But would you thought that they would be 31st in the league right now on November 20th? I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, they're 7, 12 and 1, 20 games in. That's a rough look. And then in 30th is the Ducks. And I mean, Jesus, like the Ducks, the Kings, the Blues we got to cut this part. I fucked up. Can we cut this?
Yeah, why? Because you brought up the Blues?
I have the NHL standings right now sorted by goals forward instead of points.
Oh.
Rough look.
Oh, well.
What happens when you don't podcast for a bit? Yeah, because The Blues have the second worst record in the NHL, and third worst is Pittsburgh. So, all right, we're going to retry this. Sorry.
Wait, let me write this down.
I'm sorry. I wish we could have just had no editing for you.
It's all good. What time do we start? Like 10:32?
Yes.
All right, 17.
I'm just gonna restart and be like, yeah, and the Blues are, a team obviously underachieving, and I'll get into it from there.
Okay, go for it.
All right. So yeah, Kevin, the Blues are definitely one of those teams underachieving the league, and as we kind of hinted at earlier, we were going to kind of discuss a few teams in the NHL this year that are not even close to living up to expectations right now. The LA Kings are one of those teams, very injured at the goaltending position right now, with Quick out and his backup getting injured. The Blues have the second worst point total in the NHL with 17, right above LA's 15, and then Pittsburgh is only 1 point ahead of St. Louis. So the bottom three teams in the league right now on points as we record here the night of November 20th, before we drop this on Wednesday. The teams with the three lowest point totals in the league right now are the Kings, the Blues, and the Penguins. And way down the bottom of the standings are, the Blackhawks after getting Corey Crawford back. The Ducks are off to a pretty shaky start. They give up a lot of shots. I mean, they've got some pretty well-known defensemen, but it just seems like as a unit they're not playing well at all. Vegas, their inaugural season magic, I don't want to say it's completely worn off. I mean, they've got a lot of talent in that roster, and obviously with Schmidt coming back, that adds that's an improvement on the back end. And we've seen Fleury get hot for stretches, but Vegas is, they're tied in points with Edmonton, with 2 games more played. I mean, they've played 22, Edmonton's played 20, and fucking Edmonton just fired their coach. So, I mean, yeah, and then Philly is a team that made the playoffs last year. They're right by Vegas. I mean, it seems like the standings are almost like flipped, because just to name a few teams, like you've got here the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 top. You can even say top 10 teams in the league right now as far as points go. You've got Calgary, Montreal, Minnesota, and Buffalo. And you've got the 3 teams with the worst records are Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and LA. Is there any team you want to talk about? Do you want to just talk about the parity in the league in general? I'll let the floor, pass it over to you, but it's just kind of crazy. I mean, it's early, but the standings are out of whack right now.
Yeah, it's kind of unlike anything I can, remember seeing recently. The beginning of the year, it's always reasonable to expect there will be some, slow starts and, teams that are sort of overachieving. But I think it's gotten far enough to a point where almost a quarter of the way through the year where, we're starting to see some teams that could, legitimately make it to the playoffs. Like Buffalo has won 6 straight games. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. They are rolling. Montreal, I don't really trust them. I just don't really trust them. They don't give me any reason to, but they've been playing some good hockey for, a significant amount of time. So, and then it's just even weird to look at the, the bottom 5 or 6 teams, like you mentioned. A majority of those teams made the playoffs last year, and now they are playing terrible hockey. I don't know what's going on in Pittsburgh. That is probably the biggest anomaly.
A lot of where this is coming from is obviously there's parity in the league, but one division that I think is kind of the clearest example is no one in the Metropolitan division is necessarily dominating right now. I mean, you've got Columbus in first place with 26 points, which is a very, very solid start to the year. But 26 points right now puts you at 4th in the Atlantic, tied with Montreal. I mean, Buffalo's at 28, Tampa's at 29, and Toronto's got 30. And so, I mean, in order in the Metro, I mean, you've got Columbus, then you got the Blue Shirts, then you got the Caps, then you've got the Isles, Then you've got the Hurricanes, Flyers, Devils, then the Penguins in last out of 8th, which is hard to wrap your head around after 2 straight, Stanley Cup, championships, and then running into an absolute buzzsaw of Washington, who just got hot at, red hot at the right time. So that's an interesting thing. And I don't think anyone expected Minnesota to be in second right now in the Central Division with how deep that division is. I think a lot of teams expected Colorado to be on the rise with that forward group. Winnipeg and Nashville are both incredibly deep and talented teams. I would say that on paper, Dallas has a better top 6. The Hawks have talent on the roster. They are obviously flawed, but Crawford was coming back. And then the Blues, you add a guy like Ryan O'Reilly to that forward group. And, you've still got guys like Parayko and Pietrangelo on the blue line. It's very impressive that Minnesota right now is in second in the Central, and Calgary's had a hell of a bounce back here after looking like they were going to have such a great defense last year, with Brody, Giordano, Hamonic, and I know I'm missing another big one. It was Dougie Hamilton, and now it's Hannafin. Now all of a sudden, their forwards are playing a lot better, and their D looks good. It's just crazy how much it's just flipped. And these are some really talented rosters that aren't Jesus Christ. Think about a team like the Ducks. I'm just throwing random shit out there, but imagine a team like the Ducks with all the talent on that team. If you had Joel Quenneville working with that defense group, there's a lot of talented D-men on a team like Anaheim. If he got his hands on that group, I think that's a team I feel like he could turn around pretty quickly. That's just one example. Or Philly with all their young D that they have, like Provorov and Gostisbehere and stuff. And he's worked with teams with good forwards. There's a lot, just kind of relating the coaching talk to the current standings. There's a lot of these teams that aren't playing well are talented, but they might just say, hey, we're talented, we shouldn't be this low in the cellar, and can the coach.
Yeah, and that's why I don't really want to, stay on Joel Quenneville so long, but that's part of the reason why I think that he's going to be, a little more patient in picking his next job, because first of all, he can, because he's going to be able to coach anywhere he wants. And also there's a lot of interesting options, and there's a lot, they're a lot different than you might expect. Like you just mentioned, it's really hard to tell which jobs are going to be available, come the time that he wants to get back into coaching. But he's not going to have a shortage of, good opportunities in front of him. He'll be able to, go somewhere where he can win right away. And, I think it's just something to be said about all the young talent that's finally getting into the NHL, developing, starting to play, toe for toe with these guys that we've grown up and watched dominate the league for years. And, it's finally starting to catch up.
Right. There's even jobs out there that you would never even expect that to be open that could open up. There's teams right now like San Jose who adds an Erik Karlsson. That signifies that you're going for a cut, right? And you've got a limited window. They're going for it, right? And, a team like Tampa Bay's got a lot of freaking expectations. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but, imagine if a team like San Jose or Tampa gets upset in the second round or something. John Cooper is a great coach. DeBoer's had plenty of success taking a couple different teams to the Stanley Cup final and with Jersey and the Sharks. But, I'm not trying to foresee the future here, but I'm just saying that there's also teams that have a lot of expectations that aren't even low in the standings right now that way down the line, if they don't perform well in the playoffs, they might just kind of be like, all right, enough's enough. Maybe we have a good coach, but maybe there's a coach on the market that can get us over the hump. You just never know.
Yeah, 100%. And, we should probably pause.
Okay.
All right. 10:58. What's there to talk about?
Jesus. How long have we talked already? 20 minutes?
About 26, yeah.
Doesn't have to be a long show. Not a requirement.
Okay, we should probably just talk about one more thing.
I mean, we could talk about how there's also some surprise. Talk about how hot is Mike Hoffman right now?
I don't know, how hot is he?
I think he's got points in 16 straight games.
Really?
You didn't know that?
No. I saw his picture on Twitter a bunch, so I knew something was up. I just didn't bother to look.
Let's do. Yeah, he's got 16 straight games, and then he delivered like the dagger at Ottawa last game. I'm trying to see how many points he has during the streak, but 16 games. All right. Well, we could just talk about how there's actually just a lot of forwards playing surprisingly well or better than expected this year. And I don't know, pretty vague, but I mean, there's actually some shocking couple guys that you never expect at 13 and 14 in the league right now.
Oh, yeah. I kind of want to guess, so let's do that.
Okay.
All right.
You want to kick it off? Or do you want to?
You can go for it. I forgot what we were. Oh, we just finished up with the coach talk, so yeah, you can lead us into it.
3, 2, 1. Definitely, Kevin. And, we've talked about a lot of stuff going as expected, maybe not going as much expected, but I don't know if a lot of fans at home know this because, a lot has been made about, a lot was made about the saga last year with, the awkwardness showing up at training camp, knowing his name was in trade talks, a certain GM who we called stingy, but turns out he got some damn good value back in return for this player. But Matt Duchene, folks, is 5th in the league in scoring. And another fun little tidbit I have that also is Ottawa related, since this player used to play for the Sens and, and scored a goal in their last game, which was played against his former team in Ottawa, is Mike Hoffman is currently on a 16-game point streak, which is pretty ridiculous. I think he's one of I saw it earlier. He's the 6th player in NHL history to record a point streak of 16 plus in his first season with a new team. So Mike Hoffman, we don't need to get into it, but there was a lot of drama surrounding him, and he got traded to, I believe, San Jose, and then they flipped him right away to Florida. But Duchene and Hoffman seem to be pretty acclimated to their new settings. But Duchene is 5th in the league in scoring right now, and I think Bobby Mack might have said that him and Ottawa have mutual interest in getting a long-term deal done, and then it might be like 8 years and just shy of $9 million AAV.
Yeah, that's what I saw. It's kind of surprising, considering there was a decent amount of talk that maybe they'd try to trade him, which I would think would be all-time stupid, but. Yeah, it was by no means a lock that they were going to extend him, but you kind of got no choice when he's playing this well, and he's only 27 still. So
hard to believe that he's still that young, but it's been in the league that long. Came up so early. But yeah, I mean that Ottawa team too as well. I mean, what happens with Mark Stone if you sign him for all that money?
Hopefully he comes to the Blackhawks. for one. But more realistically, I don't know. I don't know. Pierre Dorian is, you know, not the best GM per se. So I don't know if he could be able to. It's not like he has an embarrassment of riches right now where he could like, he's gonna be able to afford to lose one of these guys. But like, I just don't really know where he goes from here.
I mean, yeah, I think their back end looks pretty good for the foreseeable future with Lejoie and Thomas Shabbat. But yeah, I mean, Mark Stone, Ottawa's a team that like they're actually playing pretty well up front this year. Obviously, they've added to that group with Brady Tkachuk, but yeah, if you sign Duchesne and Stone's an upcoming UFA, and we've been talking about the standings a little bit today, and I mean, yeah, they're in sixth, I think, in the Atlantic, or yeah, sixth in the Atlantic, and they're behind Boston, Montreal, Buffalo, Tampa, and Toronto. So, I mean, yeah, I think they're a young team, and I think they're exceeding expectations. That's how low the expectations were going in, that this is going better than expected because they're just not the worst team in the league. So everyone thought they were just going to be the worst team in the league, but they've actually they've won a few games in some surprise fashion. So, yeah, but I mean, Mark Stone's the guy that might go, but the Duchesne thing, yeah, I mean, obviously the guy's feeling rejuvenated playing there. It's kind of amazing to see how well Colorado has done without him and how much he's improved his game since leaving. It just seemed like a trade that just kind of needed to happen for both sides. Kind of need to let McKinnon and Landeskog and Rantanen and that whole group spread their wings, and I think Duchesne just needed a fresh start. And just they never really achieved much in Colorado when he was there. Getting upset. I think the 1 year by Minnesota in the playoffs was kind of rough when Tyson Barrie got injured by Matt Cook. I mean, that was probably the best year they had when he was there. Obviously they kind of had some tough luck there, but yeah, very, very interesting stuff. Any thoughts on Hoffman and how well he's playing? I mean, are you surprised by that? Because he kind of seemed like it wasn't anything he really did, but I mean, he was kind of looked at as damaged goods by a lot of teams in the league.
I don't know if it was like damaged goods. I feel like I don't know. You can disagree with me on this. I feel like that whole story with his girlfriend or whatever in the offseason, I feel like that may have had something to do with like. Do you agree with me?
With him getting traded, it had everything to do with it.
No, well, I'm talking in terms of like his like being a desirable piece for a team. Like
sure. That's why
he's still a hell of a hockey player. Like he is an unreal shot. He's just still a really good hockey player, but I feel like that's kind of unfair, in a sense to sort of not like blackball him, but sort of blackball him just because of, he has a psycho girlfriend.
Yeah, definitely. Right. And I mean, think of if San Jose had been able to hang on to him. I mean, you basically flipped Bodker for him, so why not hang on to him? But obviously they valued the return they got from Florida. But yeah, he's at a point per game clip right now, which obviously is a great start to the year. 19 points in 18 games for Hoffman. So the majority of it, or possibly I don't know how many points he has during his 16-game streak, but he's only got 19 on the year in 18 games. So, damn, I mean, all of his points might be part of the streak, but I don't know for a fact. He might have had it one game where he didn't record anything, but yeah, this is a guy that he's 28. I mean, he's been in the league now, for I think this will be his sixth full year in the league. He's a good, solid player, and people forget how good this Ottawa team was. They're a Chris Kunitz half wall double OT shot away from going to the Stanley Cup final a couple years ago, and it's just kind of crazy to see how that forward group has changed so quickly with guys moving across the league and them kind of refurbishing that group quite a bit, and obviously dealing EK off the back end. So pretty crazy. But while we're on the topic of point getters, so just like there's the obvious guys right now at the top of the league. So Rantanen is absolutely eating it up right now. Him and McKinnon are 1-2 in the league in points with 32 and 29 respectively. David and Marner are tied for third, and then it's Duchesne at fifth. Then you've got Malkin, Point, Riley, Bergeron, Pastrnak, Tavares, and Kane. Those are guys you kind of expect to be in there. Morgan Riley, really evolving this year, but I mean he's benefiting from being able to dish the puck off the rush to some really dynamic forwards. But he's also, I believe, already tied his career high in goals, or maybe even eclipsed it. He's already got 9 goals this year, which is quite a bit for a D-man. 21 games into a season, wouldn't you agree with that? But I'd be curious if the folks at home have just without looking, an idea of who are 13 and 14 in the league this year in points. I mean, it's very early. Things can change. Even in a week, things can change. But the one clue I'll give everybody is these two guys are pretty young. They're in Canadian markets, and they play with a little bit of sandpaper.
Is one of them Max Domi?
One of them is. That's 14. And then number 13.
Let's think. I didn't look that up, by the way. You said plays with a little bit of sandpaper. So I'm like, Max Domi?
Mm-hmm.
Let's think.
It's bad radio. Just Kevin thinking of
Elias Patterson?
No.
Well, yeah, it's not really doesn't really fit the bill. He scores a lot of goals though.
We mentioned his brother on the show a little bit ago.
Matthew Tkachuk?
Yep, he's 13th in the league right now. He's ahead of Monahan.
Shit.
He's ahead of Gaudreau. So Matthew Tkachuk's 13th, Monahan's 15th, and Gaudreau is 19th. But yeah, he's ahead of those guys, and a lot's been made of the start Buffalo's had this year. But even a guy like Eichel's 22nd in the league right now. So it just shows how well these guys are playing. Yeah, Domi has played really well. And I mean, have we even really heard a lot from Galchenyuk this year?
No, we really haven't.
We kind of fucking laughed at that trade. We scoffed at it when it happened. But here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's always Alex Galchenyuk's always been kind of a mysterious case because, he scored 30 goals at the age of 22. So we knew he was this insanely talented forward, and then we had this whole thing in Montreal where they didn't know if they wanted to put him at center on the wing.
Yeah,
and then they tried. They just sort of moved him around a little too much, and then you could tell he didn't even want to be there. So they moved him to Arizona. Sort of set him free, so to speak. And
I don't think Domi was a guy who necessarily wanted out of Arizona. I think he just had a tough year, and they kind of said, you know what, change the scenery. And Chayka, the GM there, he is not afraid to make a quick trigger on a trade to shake things up. We've talked before with their offseason last year with Stepan and Hjalmarsson. I mean, those were two moves, and getting a guy like Demers had a bad – Jason Demers, prayers up for that guy. He had a bit of a rough injury. And, we didn't even mention Vinny Trocheck. Holy shit. Oh, God. That injury was significant.
I have yet to watch that. I refuse to watch it.
Yeah, it is not for the faint of heart. Long story short, he's kind of going in, not kind of toward the corner, but below the goal line. He's going for a puck, and he kind of gets a little tap from behind, and his leg just goes into the board so awkwardly. And then when his leg goes in awkwardly, his upper half goes down, and a lot of his weight just went down on his leg in an awkward motion, and it was just not good. I think they said it's extremely serious. But yeah, I mean, going back to Arizona, they made a lot of moves on that blue line with getting Goligoski, Demers, Hjalmarsson in the fold there, getting Chikrin, and then trading for Stepan and Hjalmarsson. And, even this offseason, they go out and get a guy like Hinostroza and Galchenyuk just trying to get a little quicker, trying to add any kind of scoring they can, and it's just another year in the desert that's not going the way they want it to. So who knows what the hell they'll do next, right?
Yeah. I think there's a lot to like in what they're doing. Like on paper, they have they're young and they're talented. So it's really hard to like hate what they're doing. But yeah, just like I really don't know. I really don't know. It's Alex Galchenyuk he's kind of the start of it. Like I thought he was going to come in and be a catalyst right away, and that just hasn't been the case because he's a proven commodity. For my money, 30 goals, insanely talented, super young, and I don't know. Maybe it's just like, $1 million talent, 10-cent brain, that type of thing. But it's got to be frustrating.
Yeah,
if you're down there in the desert.
We spent a lot of time talking on this podcast about forwards with girlfriend issues, huh? Holy shit! So.
Oh my goodness, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, we're getting personal on this episode, but
dude, that's crazy.
People are fucking crazy.
Yeah, I
don't think either guy had anything to do with it. Just like these guys get their names dragged through the mud, but yeah, it's just totally wild. And as we're talking, I hate bringing it up every episode, but not a whole lot has happened since we last talked. But William Nylander is still a Leaf, but not really on the Leafs. It's another day of restricted free agency with a Mexican standoff.
Yeah, and it's the day the deadline, the December 1st deadline is creeping up here. So we could get an answer very soon.
Do you want to explain for the folks at home that might not know what you mean by that?
So I believe what it is, I don't know off the top of my head, but he is still restricted free agent. And the Toronto Maple Leafs have a deadline of 5 o'clock Eastern time on December 1st to reach a deal with William Nylander. And if they don't do so, he cannot play hockey for the remainder of the year. And he becomes an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So I believe that is something you don't want to happen, clearly. So they'll either try to sign him long-term, get a bridge deal done, or trade him. And really, any scenario out of those three is, probably equally as likely because there's just no one knows what they're going to do. It's a really hard thing to juggle.
If you look at the way Toronto is playing this year, there's nobody like underachieving that is about to get paid. You know what I mean? Like, if anything, Marner who's tied for third in the league in scoring, he might even be a little more expensive than they anticipated, right? Or he can command more. Matthews would be right up there. I mean, with the start he got off to, but he's out right now. Based on the way the season's unfolded, I don't think any of the guys that they prefer to sign first have gotten any cheaper. So, I mean, that's just another thing. Like, you look at the way Marner's playing. Like, how can you look at the way Marner's playing and how Matthews started and then reasonably give Nylander, like, pretty ludicrous demands? Because if he wants 7-8 years and close, $7-8 million, like, with having Tavares signed, and I just don't think they can afford to do it. And they might end up trading him. I'm becoming more and more convinced they might trade him.
I think they will too. And just for the reason you said, it's like you only have so much money, and they have so many good players right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I don't see him taking a bridge deal. I just don't. Like, he wouldn't be doing this right now if it wasn't about getting paid.
I understand both. The thing is crazy about this whole saga is I understand where both sides are coming from completely. He's been very durable. He's had back-to-back 60-plus point seasons. And I think he played every game the past 2 years. He maybe missed one game one of those years. And, like, he's young, right? And he fits their group. Like, why would you not want a long-term deal, or why would you not want at least a high AAV for, the next 3 or 4 years, and then maybe double dip? And if you can even increase your point totals, like you could get more money in 3 or 4 years when the cap's higher and your stats are better. But like, I understand where he's coming from, but I understand why the Leafs would. I mean, I would rather have Marner and Matthews on my team if I could only keep 2 out of those 3 guys. Like, I'm sorry, Nylander. Like, maybe you got the best flow out of the 3, but you're not the most talented. Like, fuck. So I understand where both sides are coming from, and I mean, we could fucking drive ourselves crazy speculating about who could trade for him, though, because I mean, I think he's a fit. I mean, a guy who's durable, puts up 60-plus points, and that young is, I mean, pretty much fucking, he's a fit on any team.
Yeah, and it'd be a real shame if there's a team that had $5.4 million in cap space and a lot of underperforming forwards.
Nick Schmaltz. There's a flu going on. Sorry.
What was that?
Sorry, I got the Nick Schmaltz cough, but
dude, Nick Schmaltz, like,
he's certainly not going to be breaking the bank this offseason. But
I don't know.
Yeah, Stan Bowman is the GM, and Stan Bowman gives out no move clauses like they're Halloween candy.
Like, I mean, what did Dylan Larkin get? Everyone says that, Nick Schmaltz is in line to get a Dylan Larkin contract, which I think it's like, yeah.
No free ad.
If I had to guess, it's like 5, around.
About 6.1 over 5.
Oh, really?
There's no way he's worth that right now.
No, but I'm afraid he's still going to.
I believe here. We're stats guys. We like educating you guys. We kind of like pulling stats out of our head and verifying them after the fact. But we're going to do that right now. Pretty sure Schmaltz has 2 goals this year. Nick
Schmaltz is 22 years old, right?
Yes, he will be 23 in, I believe, February.
Okay, that sounds right.
I've looked him up recently, his stats on HockeyDB, and I believe I remembered saying, okay, he's 23, and we're gonna have to pay him, at some point. And yeah, I mean, that's a guy where, does he take a bridge because he's on a down year, or do you kind of meet in the middle and take the money now in case you never? It's all about what confidence you have in yourself as a player, I guess, right? Because if he takes a long-term deal now, I think he's going to shortchange himself a little bit. But if he takes a bridge deal, like, he can maybe get that big deal if he can put up a better season within the next couple of years. So, I mean, because right now, okay, we're up. Finally, my HockeyDB is loaded. A little slow internet. Hopefully I don't sound laggy on the actual recording of this. But, yeah, Schmaltzy through 20 games. Yeah, 2 goals. Like I said, I nailed it. 2 goals and 6 apples for 8 points. And that's a problem when you've been playing with Patrick Kane a lot of the year.
Well, I mean, more recently he has been not playing with Patrick Kane, but
he did get the moment, somewhat speaking.
Yeah. Let's go back to the beginning of last year before he got injured. He was awesome. He was really good.
Yep.
Like, he was – like, there was talks about him getting, like, was a 5-year extension, 6 per. If he plays that hockey, I would gladly give him that contract. But he's kind of a head case. That's kind of how I see it. Like, he doesn't play with any confidence. He doesn't shoot ever. And he's always been sort of
first all the way.
Yeah, he's always been sort of a problem from the dot. He hasn't been ever really to figure out how to win faceoffs consistently. So
yeah,
he's not worth that contract at all. And he
isn't
playing with any confidence. It's a nightmare.
It begs the question: is he better suited playing on the wing, based on the fact that he is not good on draws and he has freakishly good skating ability?
I mean, I do there have been times where he can make a lot of nice plays coming up the slot and dishing it out to the wings. It's kind of like a pick your poison, because if you put him on the wing, I feel like you're kind of you're taking shots away from someone else who would be better suited for that spot, So
Mhm.
it's kind of like it's a tough choice to make.
Yeah, you can't really win. But yeah, I mean, early on the year, he got a chance with 88, and 88 got off to a hot start, and somehow he racked up all of his points without really incorporating Schmaltz, I guess. Like, I don't know, man. It's just that's a guy that I know it's going to sound crazy. I think he's a guy that they could trade at the deadline if they don't want. If he, I mean, we don't know what his agents. Who do we know who his agent is off the top of our heads?
It's the same agent as Dylan Larkins. I know that.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, if he let's say he wants, let's say he wants a Dylan Larkin type contract. If you're the Blackhawks, I mean, if he wants $6 million a year, I'm just gonna flat out say it. Like, if he wants $6 million a year, you can't sign this guy.
No, you let him walk.
No, you got to trade him. You trade him at the deadline.
Oh yeah, I guess.
You're still in the playoff race. You have to get something for him.
Well, if you're gonna trade him, what about this? If you're gonna trade him,
you're gonna
I guess. Well, I mean, it's a hypothetical.
I knew where this was fucking going.
I'm not going to talk myself into it happening because I'm just going to disappoint myself.
You're just going to do exactly that. Okay.
Yeah, you're right. But like, I guess it's hard to tell because like you don't know the direction of your team right now. I mean, as much as you want to think you might, like things can turn around. He can start playing a lot better. But yeah, I feel like, obviously the longer you hold on to him, the less value he has. But I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of value in trying to get rid of him as soon as possible, especially because I don't really see a light at the end of the tunnel with Nick Schmaltz.
I'll tell you one reason why he won't end up in Toronto, because I think the way he would end up getting traded in the first place is having too lofty of an opinion about himself and what he's worth. So I think if he were to get traded for, I know like one example would be like, oh, well, let's use him as a centerpiece to get Nylander, right? That's what you might say. But if you're Toronto, would you rather have Nylander at $7.5 million or Schmaltz at $5.5? I mean, that's a no.
Well, you can't afford Nylander.
I know, but can you afford Schmaltz at $5.5 using the same logic?
Maybe barely. I don't really care to look at the numbers right now, but that's a good question.
I mean, Nylander on that team is a 60-point lock, and probably more.
And I mean, it's not like they even need that much help at forward. They need
help on defense. Money on D.
I feel like you feel like the Hawks will.
No, I'm talking Toronto. If like they're going to commit another hefty salary,
I
think they want
Nylander money.
Yeah, I think they'd want to use the Nylander money to either in a trade, or some sort of signing within the next couple of years. I mean, I'd have to look at the free agent market, but yeah, I feel like Morgan Riley's emergence is a huge thing for them, but that's one guy. I mean, you got to try out 6, and I think their corps have played a lot better, probably the best they've played within the last few years. But that helps when you're a really good possession team like Toronto is, and constantly outworking the other team and outskating them and getting a lot of power play time. Like, yeah, your D are going to have a better year, but yeah, I mean, I think they've got quite a bit of talented forwards, and they'd like to probably make a splash on D rather than spend $7.5 on Nylander or trade for another forward who's eventually going to have to get paid, because whoever the centerpiece is for that guy is going to be pretty talented as well. So,
and that's
like Nylander for a D. But I mean, we could drive ourselves nuts thinking about who that guy is. But yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, at the end of the day, like Toronto, if they're gonna want to get anything from Nylander, it's gonna be defense, and the Hawks have the exact opposite of a surplus of defensemen. Unless
they gave up like Boakfist.
That's exactly what they'd have to do, and that'd just be dumb.
Yeah, I don't think I like that one.
Yeah, that'd be dumb. But Yeah, we have what, 11 days, 10 days until December 1st.
Yeah, it's creeping up. So yeah, and just for me, is that did the Leafs set that deadline? Is that like an NHL thing? Like I'm
It's
just
an NHL deadline, I believe.
an NHL deadline. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you don't report and you're a restricted free agent, remember the last restricted free agent saga that went this long was Ryan O'Reilly, and then he was like, I think he was like playing in the KHL, wasn't he? And then he like signed an offer sheet with Calgary, and then Colorado matched it, and it was just all this whole hullabaloo that was pretty fucking wild. But yeah, this is not. I think it's tough, man. I see it both ways. I think at this point, if you're, I think if you're, I think if you're Toronto, I think if you can get a nice young D man, and one of these from a team that's willing to pay Nylander, I almost think you got to just take it. And you know, it'd be crazy if they backed themselves into a wall, right, and didn't get much for him. I mean,
Yeah.
is that a possibility? Like that they back themselves that much into a wall and just don't get them?
I don't know. I feel like Dubas knows exactly what he's doing. He's obviously a very smart guy. Um, it is kind of it is, I mean, not kind of, it is a very unique situation, but I feel like there's going to be enough people who would be interested in having William Nylander if he becomes available, um, where they could get, a damn good return for him. So, yeah, I mean, we could speculate about, who has the defensive depth and who has a surplus at that position to go get him, but, that's a whole new conversation.
Definitely. We've gotten a lot. I think we've squeezed a lot of juice out of what the past couple of weeks in the NHL has given us. So I think maybe now, unless you got something else, maybe we'll wrap up and kind of get back after it after the Thanksgiving holiday. Unless there's anything you'd like to add.
Connor McDavid just scored his 100th goal.
Oh wow!
Milestone.
As we're recording, can you believe it?
Yeah. Well, it was a little before we started recording, but it just happened basically. So
there you go.
Yeah.
One man team.
Pretty much.
Ken Hitchcock, man, already paying dividends. Connor McDavid scores a goal. So, yeah, kidding. But all right. Well, Kevin, thanks for hopping on, and I will talk to you next week. Appreciate us grinding out a week of not really a lot of news, but kind of just looking at the league as it is at face value about a quarter of the way through the year. So thanks again for hopping on, man.
Yeah, anytime. Hopefully William Nylander, this whole thing's figured out the next time we talk.
Yeah, we want to fucking, instead of just being like, oh, I understand both sides, like, I want to see it come to a resolution. I just want to have a reaction to the resolution. Yeah, be interesting. I think also, before we go, it's also possible he could sign a 1-year deal, just be a UFA next year. I think it's possible. He might just say, fuck, I'm going to play hockey this year. Let's do 1 year. Let me go on a deep run with the Leafs. Let me put up insane numbers with this forward group. The Leafs might say, hey, you know what? We'll take you back while Matthews is out, and we'll improve your stock, and we'll use you as like a boost for the cup, and then they'll probably head for a divorce. But I wouldn't rule him out playing for the Leafs. Definitely
that's not a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I don't hate
That's
that.
a little parting thought for our fans. We come with the hard-hitting ideas. All right. Bye.